Welcome back. I'm Mark Stovall with Finish First Restoration.
And I'm Mike Mangan.
And we're back here today. We've got some great news from our last video. We took the motor up to the machine shop, and what'd they have to say, Michael?
Well, they disassembled the motor, they magnafluxed the block, everything looks good. There's a few parts that wasn't all 100%, but we got enough parts between the two motors to make one good one.
That's awesome. Now in our last video, we put the cab on so we could get measurements for the custom bed. We're working on it, but I noticed you took the cow off as well. What's going on with it?
Well, we took the cow off because there's some additional prep work that needed to be done in between the two parts. There's some rust in there, and it's a lot easier to work that cow up on a bench than it is to try to work around this frame. So we'll go ahead and remove that, but other than that, we're ready to move on to the next step.
Okay, well the next step of the 4P process is the prime step, and all the products are going to be labeled in blue so they're easy to identify, and we've got a couple test panels. How do we know when these panels are flat and you know that you have all the imperfections out of it?
Well, when you're doing this work, you've got to go by sight and feel. So if you can't feel it, hopefully you'll be able to see it. And generally you'll be able to see it when you're priming. It'll lay wet so you can look down the panel, find out if it's straight or not. After that dries, there's a guide coat that you can use to help aid in finding small imperfections only. It's not going to straighten out panels for you, but it's going to identify sand scratches that you may have missed, pits, chips, anything that you may have missed in the prep stage.
Well, let's do this. We've got this panel here, a little test panel, so let's show the folks at home how to use a guide coat.
We can do that.
So we're at the test panel. We've actually got a couple dents in here, but we wanted to show you how the guide coat works. Michael, show us how this...
Well, first you want to start by shaking a can up to make sure it's properly mixed. And then you're not trying to paint this, you're trying to just get kind of a pepper coat or a dusting on there. So we're going to stand back more than we normally would, and we're just looking for that dusting on there. As soon as you start to see that black start to kind of pop up, then that's going to be good enough. So that right there should be enough coverage.
Okay, well while that's drying up, I want to show you guys a couple other the products that we're going to use in the prime stage. We've got a flexible squeegee here. This is a block sander. We're going to use it, and we've actually soaked some of our 400 paper. That's what we're going to use on this. And the reason why we soak it in water, it's going to make this sandpaper a little bit more flexible, easier to use, wrap around the block, and you can use this sandpaper wet or dry. We recommend using it wet at this stage because it's going to wash away some of the particles. It's going to give you more longevity out of that sandpaper. So, Michael, go ahead and see what we got going here.
Yeah, that should be dry enough to go ahead and sand. Usually want to wait about a minute to make sure that that's cured up enough. You can use a bucket or you can use a spray bottle. I like to use the bucket of water because I can keep dunking the paper in there to make sure that I've gotten all the debris off of the paper. So what we're going to do is we're just going to show you some of the areas that we have got this dent. So I'm going to use it as a squeegee. And immediately those areas are popping right up. So that's a good way to help reveal some of the problem areas. So those weren't visual before, but now you can see them very well now.
So what do we have to do to that now?
So you're going to have to go back to the prep stage. So you're either going to have to work those dents out by hammer and dolly, or you're going to have to put body filler in there.
Okay. Now that shows you how to reveal the dents, but the guide coat also shows you how to do other imperfections. We've got another panel we can show you how that works.
So here we are at the grill shell, and what we had was a lot of rust pitting in this. We've sealed it and primed it, but what is translated through is what looks like orange peel, so it looks like the surface of an orange. And we can see that pretty clearly, but what the guide coat is going to do, it's going to help us in the sanding process to identify that we have gotten all of that out. So I'm going to go ahead and just run a pass over that and let that dry up for a few seconds. And again, I'm using 400 grit sandpaper to start with. If we were to spray this with a metallic color, after we use the 400 and it can identify that we've gotten all of that out, see, as you can see in the surface, it immediately started to identify the high and low spots of what we call that orange peel. So what we can do is we just keep sanding until we see we've gotten all that out. Once we've gotten that all out, we can spray it with the guide coat again and then use the 600 for metallic colors, because metallics don't like to see a heavy grit, because what can happen is the metallic flakes will actually lay in those sand scratches and cause it to identify those sand scratches again in the metallic paint like the guide coat will. So as we can see, we're getting pretty close to getting all of that orange peel out. We still have a few spots, and this is where it really helps aid that. Because once we have gotten down to this spot, had we not used the guide coat, it'd be very difficult to identify that. So once we get all that out, we'll spray it again, we'll go to 600, and then we're good.
Well, we've got a lot of other parts to get through the prime process, so we will see you guys next week.
Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to see more, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Or follow our blog on gofinishfirst.com. Well, they got it apart. They checked. I got a friggin' gnat in my eye. Damn.
I was on the roll too.
Right in my friggin' eye.